Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's 7 p.m. and we'll call this meeting to order. Just by way of explanation, both Mayor L and our CAO, Dwight Stanford, are away in Edmonton at an AUMA, or Alberta Urban Municipalities meeting, as well as some meetings with government officials. We're going to begin by trying to speak louder than those children. And we'll begin with, we'll call to order the public hearing for today. And the purpose of this public hearing regards the property located at lots 29 to 31, block 17, plan 5894P, which is located in downtown north within the downtown overlay district. The town has received an application to rezone the property from R1, which is single detached dwelling district, to R3 apartment district. Can we have confirmation of notices from the development officer?
Good evening, Your Worship.
Good evening.
Council. Bylaw 1402 was published in the Strathmore Times on February 21st, 2014 and February 28, 2014. Adjacent landowners and an adjacent agency referral letter were mailed via Canada Post on February 11th.
Thank you. And can we have the development officer's report, please?
Thank you, Your Worship. The town has received an application to rezone lots 29 through 31, block 17, plan 5894P, 55 2nd Street, from R1 single detached dwelling district to R3 apartment district. This property is located in downtown north within the downtown overlay district. Notifications of the public hearing were published in the Strathmore Times on February 21 and February 28, and adjacent landowners and agencies were notified by letter February 11th. The parcel presently has a designation of R1, residential single detached district, and is surrounded by single detached dwellings to the north, south, and east, and a P1 public service district being the Wheatland Lodge to the west. The site is served by an alley on the south and east sides of the property. At this time, a vacant single detached dwelling in various stages of renovation, which have been ongoing for a number of years, is located on the site. Both the current and proposed new municipal development plan and the downtown overlay bylaw 1317 promote an increase in residential density development in this area. The intent is to demolish the existing single detached dwelling and to construct a multi-family dwelling. The number of units to be constructed will be determined by the requirements under the Land Use Bylaw 8920, Section 150. Landscaping and parking requirements for this proposal will be determined at development permit application stage and must conform to Land Use Bylaw 8920, Sections 60 and 61, and the Downtown Overlay Bylaw 1317. The development permit application will also be reviewed by the Downtown Design Review Committee, per the Overlay Bylaw 1317. Utilities are available to the site and will be addressed at development permit stage, with a condition to require a servicing agreement for utility connections and the collection of a security. To date, the town has received 2 responses from agencies, ATCO Gas and TELUS, stating they have had no objections to the rezoning proposal. Planning and development support the application to rezone the property. Our mandate under the Municipal Development Plan and the Downtown Overlay Bylaw is to direct development and increase density in an orderly fashion. 2 citizens have asked to be placed on the agenda to voice their concerns regarding this bylaw, and 3 letters have been received from adjacent landowners stating concerns in regard to the application to rezone the property. The applicant has also submitted a letter to council and was advised to approach adjacent landowners for feedback. Pending the outcome of all the information provided at the public hearing could be closed if council feels that it has all the information required to make a decision on the bylaw, or if council feels that the developer requires further input from the adjacent landowners, The public hearing could be postponed to a later date as determined by council. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. And are there any written submissions?
Yes, Your Worship. Abe and Corey Fair of Abe Fair Contracting, Mr. Gene Strathmore of 70 Lakeside Boulevard, Wayne and Shelley Cole of 47 2nd Street, and Justin Walker and Tara Fox Walker of 86 Lakeside Boulevard.
Would you please read the written submissions into the record, please?
Thank you, Your Worship. Bylaw 1402. After reviewing the document, I and my neighbors have a few concerns. 1. Can the town infrastructure handle the additional volume of water and waste in the aging sewer line? Also, is the water line large enough to handle the extra volume without pressure loss down the line? 2. Excuse me. The increase of traffic this development will have on the back alley, especially dust during the summer and fall, also during the construction period. Has the town taken this into account, how to deal with this problem? 3. How many units will be allowed to be built on this site? Also, parking. Will it have enough stalls, plus guest parking? Gene Strathmore, 70 Lakeside Boulevard. To the Town of Strathmore from Wayne and Shelley Cole, Bylaw 1402. As per your letter of February 11, 2014, please accept this letter as a written submission to make an oral presentation at the public hearing on March 5th at 7 p.m. Due to our absence, we will be sending Carly Cole on our behalf to make the presentation. The letter the Town of Strathmore sent us is for a request to amend the land use bylaw map by redesignating lots 2931, block 14, plan 5894P from R1 single detached dwelling district to R3 apartment district as shown on your attached Schedule A. The letter is extremely vague, not giving us as property owners any inclination of what is to be built on this lot, so therefore our concerns are the following. 1. Street parking currently is very minimal due to employees from the Wheatland Lodge taking up the majority of the street parking on a daily basis. And as it currently stands, we can very seldom even get a parking space in front of our home. If an apartment or multi-rental unit is built, this is going to affect this problem even more, and parking will not even be accessible in front of our home. 2. Traffic. Again, if a multi-rental unit is built, this is going to affect back alley traffic immensely. And again, parking at peak times of the day, evening. 3. Back alley allotment. We do not want to lose our back alley access to our garage. Prior to our consent of this bylaw being approved, we would only request at this time that there be more information in regards to what is being built and how the above concerns will be met. Thank you. Wayne and Shelley Cole, 47 2nd Street. Joel, Justin Walker, and Tara Fox Walker, 86 Lakeside Boulevard, Town of Strathmore. Dear Town of Strathmore. As homeowners and proud residents of Strathmore, we are concerned with this proposed redesignation. It should be noted that the type and size of building proposed would affect our concerns. For example, a 4-story, 12-unit, low-cost rental apartment building with off-premises manager versus a 1- or 2-story retirement apartment complex with live-in management. These have very different demographics and effects on the neighborhood. The latter would be very welcome. Building placement on the property, views from the complex, as well as parking access and location would still need to be addressed. Property value effects. I'm concerned that the value of my R1 residential property, currently in the midst of R1 properties, will be decreased by backing onto an apartment building. We know many of our neighbors, and for the most part, these are homeowners. Home ownership generally engenders pride in the property and responsible behavior. Not in my backyard. The dimensions and layout of the property, along with maximum allowable height, 4 stories, of apartment buildings, could provide views directly into our backyard and windows limiting our privacy, the privacy that we now appreciate. This proposed development would increase the traffic in our back alley, traffic of a more transient nature. We have a young family. An apartment complex across the back alley from us is an unwelcome proposal. Pride of ownership, management, resolution of concerns. Is the owner and/or developer a local resident? A local owner and developer would positively affect the choice and management of tenants, bring responsibility to the care and monitoring of the property. If the owner does not live in the building, close to the building, we will have less monitoring of the premises and behavior of occupants. Again, living across the back alley, raising young children, this does not appeal to us in any way. Quiet block facing seniors complex. Is this a prime R3 area? This section of downtown North is a quiet neighborhood. The proposed apartment complex could contain upward of 12 units, 4 stories tall, effectively doubling the population within this one block. This is fantastic for development and growth purposes, but does not seem like a good fit across the road from the seniors complex and across the alley from small families. Are there not prime properties available within the downtown core that would make more sense according to the downtown revitalization plan? In summary, accepting any and all development without question is not the long-term benefit of our community. Does one random R3 rezoning in the middle of an R1 block really make sense? Should this rezoning be approved despite concerns brought forward, the following will need to be addressed. Location of the building on the property, protecting the privacy of adjacent landowners' views from apartment. Parking lot location and access, protecting the security and safety of neighbors. Property management, responsibility of apartment residents, accessibility of management and ownership. We do understand the need for the town to be constantly moving forward with development and growth, but please do not feel that this can come at the expense of the existing residents. Please consider these concerns seriously. We wish to be reasonable and support the growth and development of the burgeoning community of Strathmore. Sincerely, Justin and Tara Walker, concerned citizens and homeowners. Aid Fair Contracting, Strathmore Town Council, Bylaw 1402 Land Use Amendment. It is our understanding through discussions with adjacent landowners that there are some concerns regarding our application to rezone 55 2nd Street. We would just like to provide neighbors and council some guidance regarding our intentions with the proposed redesignation parcel. With the town's stated desire to increase density of the downtown core, we believe this project represents that stated goal. While there are benefits and drawbacks to the increased density, we believe the real question is whether this development would represent a net benefit to the town, and more particularly, the downtown core. With density will come side effects, additional traffic, parking requirements, dust from rear lanes. However, it is our opinion that the benefits of the increased density, removal of vacant and at times uninhabitable homes, significant increase in the property taxes per redevelopment, greater utilization of infrastructure, revitalization, represents a net benefit to the town. Background and intentions. Over the course of the past 4 years, we have built new condominiums on 8 previously single-family properties. Of those 8 homes, only 1 home was occupied in the 12 months preceding our purchase. From all of our unit sales to date, 75% of the sales have been to owner occupants. Of the 8 homes that have been removed during this time, 5 have had direct ties to the sanitary sewer system to remove groundwater. We are not interested in having the rezoning move forward should it not align with the direction of the downtown and provide a net benefit. As with past projects, during the course of construction, we will do our utmost to be good neighbors and minimize the impact on adjoining properties. However, as with all construction-related activities, there would be some impact. We anticipate this project would be completed in under 9 months from the time of excavation. General building intentions. Construct a 12-unit building very much in keeping with previous projects we have undertaken, such as 128 6th Avenue, in terms of fit and finish, building massing, and structure height. Provide no less than and 18 off-street parking spaces for owners and visitors. Hard surface, all off-street parking as required by R3 zoning. Keep and or replace trees on property as required by R3 zoning, roughly 22 trees and 30 shrubs post-development. Provide zero net gain to overland stormwater runoff post-development as required by the Development Authority. Respectfully, Corey Fair, 8 Fair Contracting Limited.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Are there any persons wishing to be heard who are in favor of the application? Mr. Fair, please come forward. Good evening.
Good evening.
Thanks, Corey.
I'd like to thank Council for providing us this opportunity to speak. Just wanted to provide some guidance as to our intentions for the proposed redevelopment. For those unfamiliar with the types of buildings we've been constructing downtown in the past few years, that's why we brought that picture along to show the relative height and finish of the types of buildings that we've been building and that we would intend to build on this proposed redevelopment site. As you can see, they're a stacked configuration. So the building would, if it was a 12-unit building, it would have 6 units in the lower and 6 units on the upper. As you can see, it's similar to a 2-story structure, except that it's sunk 2 feet into the ground. So it would put the building overall 2 feet higher than a similarly sized bi-level type structure, and consequently 2 feet lower than a similarly sized 2-story structure. As with past projects, we anticipate that the building would occupy roughly 30% of the site area, with the remaining to be landscaped and off-street parking. The one major difference between this, what we would intend to build on this site, versus past projects that we've completed, is that we would intend to build more off-street parking facilities due to the limited front street availability and the proximity to the seniors lodge. As mentioned in our letter, with previous projects, we're over 75% owner occupants that we've sold to. There's been only one building that we've built. It was a fourplex where a local real estate investor purchased the entire building. Otherwise, it seems to be a couple units out of every building seem to have somebody that wants to rent them out. And we don't expect that that proportion would change with this proposed development. Are there any questions that I can answer for any interested parties?
Thank you, Council.
Yeah, through the chair to Mr. Fair. So this here would be condominiumized, and these units would be sold to...
Sold individually as...
Yes,
Yeah.
so it's not a rental property.
It's not intended to be a rental property, and when they get condominiumized, they tend not to be rental properties just because of the extra paperwork that would be required, like to maintain a condominium.
So the pride of ownership still is there. It's
Yeah.
the same as you would have in any other R1 district or R2 district.
It should be unchanged. It should be unchanged, yeah.
Thank you.
Councilman Peterson.
Hi, Corey, through the chair. I'm referencing the letter from Wayne and Shelley Cole, and they ask about not wanting to lose their back alley access to their garage. Would you just like to speak to that?
Yeah, like all of our parking would be off of the 2 rear lanes, and it would, the way the property is situated, it's got a rear lane on 2 sides of the property, and there would be some parking off of both of those lanes. All the parking would be hard surface paved, but I don't see any reason why it should impede anybody's ability to use their garages, or in most likelihood it should increase their ability. Like, there won't be any fences in the way, that sort of thing.
And the second question I have is when Ms. Fountain was doing her presentation, she mentioned that you would be working with the Downtown Revitalization Committee. Am I clear on that?
Yeah, all of them would be going through the
Right.
review process, yeah.
Okay. And then finally, the issue of protecting the privacy of adjacent landowners.
Yeah, I guess with increased density, there are going to be more eyes. In general, the way that the building, we haven't drawn any plans, pending the outcome of this. So, but in general, on the left-hand side of the property, which would be the west side, I would say, we'd probably have about a 12 to 15 foot setback of the building to the property line. From the rear lane of the property towards Lakeside, it would probably be in the neighborhood of 30 to 35 feet, and similarly on the other lane as well. And then, of course, a 20-foot setback from the front of the property. But again, being that it's like the decks, the balconies that are on these buildings, their height is approximately 6.5 feet off the ground. So that would be the highest vantage point. That would be the floor level of the upper suites. Yeah.
I have no more questions. Your action.
I'm sorry, no
I
more?
have no more.
Thank you, Councilor Rep.
Yeah, through the chair to Corey, sure. That dwelling that's on there presently
Yes.
is a 2-story dwelling?
It's a it
Used to be.
higher. Yeah, the eave line of that home is higher than what we would propose.
So really, if that residence were occupied, their sight line would be higher than on the proposed.
It would be higher, being that the building would be a larger building. Then there will be some potential occupancies that are going to be closer to, say, a rear lane or a side lane or something than exist with that current 2-story home. But you're right, it would be lower. The sight lines would be lower.
Because it's here, they make reference to a 4-story
That's not our intention.
building, and I can see some concerns when you're going through a 4-story building.
Yeah, and certainly, and they're totally legitimate concerns regarding dust from rear lanes and all of these things. And it's just it's one of those things. It's a question of, I believe, net benefit, right? Whether or not this represents the way the town wants to go. And we have I believe, a strong track record of delivering what we promise and exceeding requirements, and we sell these things individually, and our goal is to provide the best product we can provide, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think we're all aware of that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Fuel.
Yes, through the chair, thank you, Your Worship. Through the chair to Mr. Fair, I have 2 questions. One, the setbacks that you talked about on the west and east side of the lot for your proposed condo, would they allow for and be able to use any trees to help with privacy as far as the back lane there in the front of the building?
Yeah, like our intention would be, in more than likely, what will happen is there'll be a row of trees along the front. It'd probably be some form of a columnar type tree to go along the adjacent property, and then of course Along the back, I would say along the lane that's opposing Lakeside Boulevard, there may not be the opportunity for large trees, but there'll be probably a pretty large wedge that would be kind of where the property flares out the most.
Okay, that's not where you envision any parking on that lane?
But all the trees would be closer to the building.
Okay,
There's a couple trees that would probably remain, existing spruce trees that would remain on the tip of the property where there's an existing utility pole and guy wire.
okay. My second question is, you said you've built, your company has built other buildings. Obviously, we know about them in the various parts of downtown. Have you, as a company, checked or monitored to see how your condo constructions have affected any property values in the areas that you've built?
We haven't. No.
Okay, because I know that's one of the concerns that some people have, is that it may affect their property values.
Yeah.
I could speak to that, Council.
Okay.
Your Worship,
Please.
I could speak to that,
Please,
having
Council.
been neighbor to Mr. Fair's many properties being built in the downtown. And we live in downtown south, and the Abe Fair Construction has been the builder of many buildings down there. I can say that I've always been extremely impressed when they're building in a high-density area already in the midst of a school. The care and caution and lack of dust and disruption to the community has been considerable. I've been very impressed with how that's been carried out. And I can tell you that downtown south is not the same kind of community as downtown north. They're different, very, very different communities because of the school, the access to the highway, and the businesses. So they're very different. And I want to preface my comments in saying that. But the condominium and multifamily complexes that have been built in that neighborhood, in my opinion, have enhanced them greatly. They brought many children into the area. It's made a very safe and friendly community. And with access to such amenities as the downtown and the park and to the school, it has been very good. But we're like I said, we're a different community than downtown north.
I appreciate those comments.
I have nothing else, Your Worship.
Well, thank you. I just would make one comment. This is a rezoning hearing and a public hearing, and Mr. Fair is under no obligation to be providing that level of information as to what his plans are to put up there. So your openness and your willingness to supply us with that information is greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You want
So
it back?
next,
Yeah,
If you don't want them, I'll take them.
well,
Hand them up.
I'm sure well the people there might want to see that. Thank you.
I'll hold on to that.
we'll keep one for the records.
Yeah. Okay, next, are there any persons wishing to be heard in opposition of this application?
Yes, Your Worship. Brian and Linda Code at 126 Slotty Lane and Carly Cole will speak for the Coles at 47 2nd Street.
Thank you. Mr. and Mrs. Cole, would you, Brian, Linda, would you please come up? Or just Brian?
Yes. These are copies. I don't know if anybody wants them. Okay.
Thanks. And for the record, just identify yourself, please.
I'm Brian Code. I'm at 126 Waddy Lane, immediately south of the mentioned property.
Thank you, Brian.
Mayor and councillors, thank you for listening for my concerns here. This bylaw change is really about zoning appropriately for a community. Any proposed development is really fundamentally irrelevant to the whole issue, because once plans are approved, once the zoning is approved, there are no defined plans. Automatically, the development office has to approve any development that meets the regulations. So therefore, as a person across the street, I know that I could be facing a 45-foot, 0.9 feet apartment building. I know that the permitted density is 13.98 people. But there's a discretionary use in that district as well, which could allow for an apartment of more than 30 units. A few notes from the bylaw. R2X, maybe a more appropriate zoning, should be utilized within areas of transition between differing land uses. Appearance and scale should be similar in nature to adjoining neighborhoods. About R3, it should give due regard to compatibility of the proposed use on or within close proximity of the site. A reminder about the development officer. They shall approve all applications that comply with the regulations. They also have the variance to approve things that they think is appropriate. Downtown North is a surprisingly cohesive community. It's undergoing a gradual, well-planned transition from older homes to smaller, attractive row housing units. It is nicely bordered by transitional uses, including churches, seniors' residences, a funeral home, and a brand new subdivision of new single detached and duplex housing. Geographically, it's really organized. It's quiet. It's a pleasant neighborhood where privacy is wonderful because it has a mature landscape. The area's infrastructure is older. 2nd Street needs a lot of reworking. We already can't water our lawn effectively because of very low water pressure. If 2 of my neighbors are watering lawn at the same time as me, I'm just running water into one spot on my lawn almost. The development could have more people live in it than live in the entire block now. The scale is completely out of proportion to the rest of the block, which is almost entirely small 1-story homes. There's one other 2-story home on the block. Excuse me. The vision of a monster home demonstrates basic incompatibility. Approving a potential 45-foot building will take away all backyard privacy for the neighbors. Traffic flow will increase dramatically, reducing safety, increasing noise, and change the basic nature of the block. Spot zoning to such a high density effectively destroys the nature of our neighborhood. Once the zoning is in place, the development department has no choice but to approve the development applications that follow the rules. Once zoned, the property will increase in value dramatically, and the current owner or next owner could simply flip the property, throw out the plans, and once again, 45-foot apartment building. Excuse me. And all of us have this being built across the back alley from us. There's something, I think I missed a page. There's something about the lot that you need to understand. There are 17 residences on that block. 11 of us are directly across from that lot. So in order to maximize an investor profit, you're compromising the neighborhood of 12 families. Spot zoning does not make for cohesive communities. It's one of the most problematic of all zoning decisions and should never be encouraged because they aren't community driven, they are developer driven. So I'm skipping a bit. Downtown Strathmore is losing its only grocery store. What's going to follow, whether you like it or not, is going to be an exit of several of the small businesses as well. The whole density issue for the area of us needs to be re-examined. The downtown, if you want apartment building and density, they should be beside the Walmart. They should be in transition zones between areas. Lambert Village is a marvelous example of R3 zoning. It's in a very appropriate place. The middle of a quiet residential community is not appropriate. So, last line, squeezing the maximum number of units on a parcel of land to generate maximum corporate profits does not serve the interests of the other stakeholders. The proposed use is inappropriate, untimely, and should not be approved. Sincerely, Brian and Linda Cove.
Thank you, Mr. Code. Is there any questions for Mr. Code?
Other than not approving it, Brian, do you have any other, sorry, through the chair?
Well, honestly, I don't understand why it has to be an R3 zoning, period. What's wrong with the R2X transitional zoning? You know, like, it just seems like such a logical thing. Like, it's such an extreme to go from these little homes to this big units, okay? So, like, if it was zoned R2X, you'd put an appropriate number of units there and you would start the transition of the neighborhood. But going all out like that first is just going to destroy the value of everybody else's homes around it, because people really don't want to live there. I want to live in an R1 neighborhood. I don't want neighbors that have apartment buildings, period. And I know that the developer may not be planning that, but the reality is, once it's zoned, there's nothing you can do.
So you're not worried about this building so much as you're worried about all the ones that are coming?
I'm not worried about all the ones that are coming, because once the transition starts in a planned, logical process, it's going to happen. Like, just like your neighborhood. It's inevitable that my neighborhood, because I mean, they are old homes. They're little old homes. They're going to transition. But what I'm saying, it's too extreme a jump at one time. There's nothing wrong with making that an R2X to start with, so that it is more controlled and progresses the community into the transition rather than forcing it like that. It's just an inappropriate zoning for a R1 neighborhood. The other ones, like I know he's built the other ones, are those all R3 lots as well? Are any of them R3 lots?
That's a good question.
Any of the lots on the developers built previously, were any of them R3 lots? Okay. It's inappropriate for the neighborhood. Downtown North is a really cohesive neighborhood already. It's just too big a scale.
Go ahead.
So question through to Linda, Betty Ann. Can the same size building be built on an R2X?
Well, perhaps we should wait for questions to the development officer and get through with Mr. Cole first.
Yep,
if we
that's
could.
fine.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Cole?
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
Sorry. for
That's- And Carly Cole? Good evening.
Hi,
For the record, would you just state your name and your address, please?
my name is Carly Cole. My address is 47 Second Street.
Thank you very much.
I don't have anything prepared. I didn't realize I was supposed to speak.
Surprise.
So I'm here on behalf of my parents who own the property. I live in their property. I have for the past 6 years. I grew up in this neighborhood. And just with what Brian said, I have the same concerns, just the 12 units, 24 new neighbors. It just seems like that's our entire neighborhood all in one spot. Another big concern of mine personally is parking. I run a business from my home. I am licensed to have people come to my home, to my business. And all the time I have trouble with my parking as it stands. So that's just really something I'm concerned with, because even 12 units, 18 parking stalls, you've got sometimes 2-3 people living in a unit, depending if they're rented or bought. You've got their guests coming in and everybody else. It's going to be tough. As well as just, I'm really sad to see all the trees of the neighborhood go. Just something brand new. I don't know that it fits. So it's, with their plans, I think it's okay, but I do worry that it, like Brian said, what if, it goes from 12 to, 15 or 20 units, then kind of what are we looking at is my main concerns.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Cole?
Go ahead. Yeah, through the
Councilor
chair,
Redmond, please.
I see in your parents' letter, there's concern about access to the garage.
Yes.
Is the access off the alley, or is it through that adjacent property?
No, my access is off of the alley. But we're concerned that if the way that they're building would block any alley access, that's kind of what I'm concerned about. What they're concerned about.
Okay, yeah, well, they wouldn't be able to
block any
to
alleyway
block
access.
on your property.
Okay.
To prohibit you from entering your property from the alley.
Well, it's not so much that. It's just if one one side of the alley was blocked from the street, or if the one, because there's one that kind of tees in and then it goes like this. So I think that's just what they were concerned about, just with other zoning, and sometimes you see things like that happen. So it was just a concern we had, just what if.
Are you satisfied with their report that the alleys would remain open, both
In all
going east and west and north and south?
Yeah, that's fine. If they can guarantee that, if the town can guarantee that with this new rezoning, that they're not going to be allowed to restrict alleyway access, that's fine with me. But I don't know what the zoning entails.
Yeah, the width of the alley, the right of way has to remain the same.
Okay.
After rezoning as it does prior to rezoning.
Okay. All right.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
I would now like to invite anyone else that's out there, including Mr. Greer, who is in opposition of this application, to come forward and speak. And we have received a written letter from Mr. Greer, who commented that he was not able to speak, but I would allow that.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I appreciate this. Basically, I had a couple of extra items that I'd like to bring forward just to ensure that you understand the context of the lot, the community, and the ramification. One of the things that I was wondering was if any consideration had been given to contextual zoning. It's similar to what Mr. Code was speaking about, but the City of Calgary has zoning types where it's written into the rules that a new development must fit into the existing character of the neighborhood. The criteria for R3 and the apparent scope of the project is outlined by the submission. It's not really in character with the neighborhood as it exists. On the entire block, there's only three properties that have buildings that are taller than 1 story. My own residence is 74 Lakeside. The subject property, and then 86 Lakeside is a 1.5 story. The nearest, in reading the presentation online, I was under the assumption that it was a 3-story building. But the nearest, and honestly, the zoning does allow for up to a 45-foot 4-story building. So we do have to be cognizant of the potential of the zoning, as well as the project as the applicant has defined it. The nearest 3-story buildings essentially are on Wheatland Trail, more than a block and a half or 2 blocks, and then down by Main Street. While redevelopment and densification of the downtown is necessary to revitalize the neighborhood, there's also a way to accomplish this that preserves the best characteristics of the neighborhood. This is what my neighbors and I want, is we want to make sure that we are moving forward in a way that both serves the town's needs but also preserves the best characteristics of the neighborhood. Increased traffic has also been brought up. Primary vehicle access to the subject currently goes through the gravel back alley. This equates to at least 24 to 36 vehicle trips a day at a minimum. I'm just wondering if the developer or the town administration knows what the impact of that will be on the community. Hard paving the parking lots in the back is something that I have a question about, specifically with surface runoff and storm sewer drainage. It hasn't been mentioned here, but that property has a significant slope. The back alley is essentially, well, it's taller than it's probably 6 to 10 feet below the front section of that property. So if you're hardscaping, there is going to need to be mitigation for surface runoff. To the best of my knowledge, I do not believe there is any storm sewer main in the alleyway. It's all on 2nd Street, but that can be confirmed and that can be dealt with. But that is a point that you have to take into consideration in this. The natural inclination for water is to run downhill, and that's going to run counter to the storm sewer, and there is going to need to be mitigation for this. So the question then comes is, who would be responsible for installing a stormwater system to prevent overland flooding? Because actually my neighbor, who's not here, Gene Struxma, when I first moved in, told me wonderful stories when he first built his house in the 70s about having lots of runoff right through his property until he finally kind of regraded his thing. The sewage main in the alleyway is over 50 years old. Again, according to the information I received from my neighbor, Mr. Struxma. The question is, does that have the capacity to handle the additional load from 12 dwelling units? Moreover, does it have the life expectancy? Is there going to be a need to replace the sewer main on that entire alleyway because of this project? That's going to be a consideration that you're going to need to investigate. I was also, have a question about maximizing the preservation of the soft landscaping. There is, there are a number of mature trees, mature shrubs on the alleyway. I was actually thankful for the presentation by the applicant in his discussion of trying to retain the as much soft landscaping as it is. It shows a concern that for the community that on my term in council was unusual. And I'll say no more about that. Finally, in trying to investigate this further, I went through the planning website, and I was wondering if there is an area structure plan or an area restructure plan for the downtown. Basically, something that would have identified the issues, considerations, and unique characteristics of the communities. I'm pleased to hear that there is a committee that looks at the revitalization of this, but I also have to question: is there a defined plan that has identified the characteristics of this neighborhood and the entire downtown, and what we want to preserve? Because revitalization of the downtown is an important priority for the continued development of the town of Strathmore. But there is a correct way to accomplish this goal. This goal must be achieved in a way that enhances the core of the municipality, but also preserves the best features of this community. Town council was elected to ensure that the town not only grows, but grows in the best possible manner. You, council, are the proxy of the citizens, and we rely on you to make sure that the best path forward is chosen. And I just want to remind you of this and put this in context with the situation of the site and the community and the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Any questions for Mr. Beer? Thanks very much.
Thank you.
I now open up questions to the development officer by council. Councillor Wall.
Thank you. Through the chair to our development officer, can you speak about the R2X? What does that allow for on the site?
One moment, please. I brought R3, I didn't bring up R2X is mixed medium density attached housing district. Under permitted uses would be 20 units or less attached dwellings, or what we call duplex housing. Discretionary would be attached dwellings more than 20 units. They also allow under permitted uses for semi-detached housing, similar to what is in the ranch. There are exceptions to R2X. A good example of that would be Strathmore Lakes Common, where you have the main primary with the guest suite behind, or the guest unit behind.
Your Worship, a further question. Can you talk about contextual zoning? What is that?
I'm going to defer that question to Ms. Nelson.
Contextual zoning? I guess that would be more like a transition type area where you maybe have an R1, and next to that you have an R2, next to that an R2X, and an R3.
So it's like staged housing. Okay. My next question would be, traffic seems to be quite a concern here, and parking. Is that dealt with now, or is that dealt with in the development process?
When we receive the development permit and the drawings, one of the requirements is to give us a site plan, and on the site plan, we require them to show us the required number of parking stalls, access to those parking stalls, also the landscaping, and basically how the structure is to fit onto the lot. The property now is served by an alleyway that runs west-east and then south to north. So that would, I'm assuming that would be the intention then for access. And Corey had mentioned they would have parking along the south side and then again onto the east side of the property, which would be coming off the back lane. We'd also have to keep that open, I mean, for garbage pickup and that sort of thing too, so.
Thank you. Thank you, Worship.
Councillor Peterson.
Through the chair to Ms. Fountain, the building being proposed by Fair Construction, would it qualify for R2X as well as for R3?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Attached housing has, okay, so if you say attached housing, you could look at townhouses that are attached, common walls. Attached housing also could mean stacked, where there's a common floor area and common walls. And what the fairs have proposed is 2-level, 6 units per level. That is attached housing and or duplexing.
Anyone else? Councillor Rem.
Just a comment maybe, if there's a concern of progressing the from R1 to R2 to RTX, whatever, Waddy Lane is probably the ideal place to draw that line, because that there is row housing on First Avenue, and then Waddy Lane could become the R2, R2X area, and then R3 north of there would still be appropriate.
Thank you. Councillor Fuel.
Well, I just had a question. If this is the rezoning bylaw that we're talking about is going from R1 to R3, if it went to R2X, would that not then put limits on the size of a building that could be put there? Would that satisfy the owners adjacent to and around this property site? And would that then give that transition if we know that it's limited to a certain size of a building, like this 2-story photo that we had?
Under the permitted use, it would be 20 units or less. And
Okay.
under building height, the maximum height for the principal building would not exceed 10 meters or 33 feet. For duplex housing and semi-detached housing and garden suite, which we talked about over on Strathmore Lakes Commons, would be 36 feet. It's my understanding from the developer and the builder that the building that is proposed would be a couple of feet over our maximum 2-story single-family dwelling height, which is 33 feet. So they would possibly come in at 35.
I just don't want to muddle the water
No.
with the proposal of the building, because
Yes.
there was no doubt in my mind that the fairs are going to build what they said they were going to build, but that's not the question. The question is, what is permitted use? And I guess the question is, what is the difference between R2X and R3?
Okay? All right.
Can I also just mention something as well? You also have to have consideration for the size of the site, and that is going to determine the size of the building and the number of units. So even if it was an R3, the maximum that you can build on that site is 12 units to get the parking and the landscaping.
Yes.
So you still have to consider that. You can't just put up a 20-unit apartment building because you don't have enough parking. So you have to meet all of the requirements as well.
Thank you, Ms. Nelson.
Questions arising? Councillor Wall.
Your Walls, thank you, Your Worship. Over to our Deputy CEO. What is our current number of parking stalls required per site? Or maybe our development officer can answer that as well.
It depends. Under our present land use bylaw, parking requirements are determined by the type of project or structure. For example, a single detached dwelling requires 1 parking space. Under apartments, it's 2 parking spaces per dwelling if the building contains 8 or less units. For buildings containing 9 or more dwelling units, 2.6 parking spaces per dwelling are required. And then, of course, it moves into commercial and industrial. The 18 parking stalls for 12 units is sufficient. It would meet the requirements.
Sorry, did you not just say that it's 2 over 8?
Help me,
Worship,
sorry.
also, it depends on the use of the building. For example, if it's an apartment, a senior's apartment, it's 1 stall per unit.
Yes.
And the other item is that we are looking at our parking requirements because they are extensive. So we have been looking at that, and the new land use bylaw should be coming forward early this summer. And that parking bylaw we're proposing a number of changes.
Okay.
Also,
Yep.
Sorry, Your Worship. Also under the parking regulations, it does state that 1.3 parking spaces per dwelling unit if the dwelling units are in a condominium development accessed by common property. And I believe it is the intention of the developer and builder to condominiumize this building. Therefore, it's the 18 stalls that were calculated.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. And I guess I just want confirmation for the public in regards to some of the issues that were brought up in regards to stormwater, sewage, et cetera, grading of the property. These are all issues that are extremely important,
Yes, I agree.
but are not necessarily should be dealt with at the rezoning area. There's another area that these issues will be dealt with, and on a fairly serious manner as well by the planning department. Is that correct?
Yes.
Your Worship, and Ben also has a closing statement to address some of these.
Thank you. Councillor Peterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. My question, Betty Ann, is one that either you or perhaps our Deputy CAO may answer, but what capacity does the town have, either in historically or in policy, to work collaboratively with a community, with an older community with regards to rezoning? For instance, our area structure plans in our new areas don't require such things. But I'm wondering if there is anything that exists in historically in our community to work with existing older communities when it comes to rezoning and restructuring any kind of collaborative plan, or if it's a consideration in our new land use bylaw, or if it is a consideration in the downtown overlay revitalization project. Thank you.
I'd like to address that. The downtown overlay bylaw, we held public hearings.
Yes.
We sent invitations to the business owners, business operators, advertised that it was for the public to come to see what the overlay bylaw would look like and the direction we were heading with it. And part of the overlay bylaw is revitalization, not only of the businesses in the core, but of some of the larger properties. And for example, this one, it's quite a large property. It has a single detached home on it now. The proposal is to rezone it to R3. Part of the downtown overlay bylaw is to increase density, whether it be in the north, the central, or the south regions of the downtown. Linda, did you want to add anything?
And just say yes, that, you know, there are open houses. We have had our municipal development plan. We have had open houses for that. And again, we have had numerous presentations and open houses on the downtown overlay bylaw, which does include that entire area. So there has been extensive public consultation on this.
Thank you. There are no other questions from council. Does the development officer have any closing statements?
Thank you, Your Worship, Council. Your Worship, Council members and stakeholders. When planning and development receives an application for rezoning, we consider a number of factors during the review of the application. We look at adjacent uses, the size of the site, access, parking, and a number of other requirements under the land use bylaw for this district. The common themes in the concerns noted by the adjacent landowners are traffic, parking, and back alley access. The site is approximately 18,589 square feet and could accommodate up to 12 units with 18 off-street parking spaces and approximately 22 trees and 30 shrubs. The developer will be required to enter into a servicing agreement to address site servicing, which will include water, sanitary sewer, and stormwater. Concerns have been expressed with regard to capacity within the existing infrastructure to service the additional units. The existing peak flow rate of the sanitary sewer has capacity within the design capacity of the 250 millimeter trunk main. Adding 12 units will not have any significant impact, but will need to be reviewed for peak hourly flow. This infrastructure is due for replacement within our annual infrastructure upgrade program. Funds are allocated for pipe replacement and upgrades with the 10-year capital plan annually. Underwater, the northeast and southeast side of this lot have 100 millimeter cast iron pipes. The proposed development will have no impact on capacity of water supply or on water pressure. This infrastructure is also due for replacement and is within our infrastructure upgrade program within the 10-year capital plan. A stormwater system does not exist in this area. The developer will be required to submit engineered drawings, including a stormwater management plan and a mechanical site plan to ensure that there is capacity and availability of services to the site. These plans will be reviewed by the development engineer and our consulting engineers to ensure our engineered standards are being met. These are items that are addressed at the development permit stage. It is at this time that staff will review the drawings to ensure that all parking, landscaping, building footprint, setbacks, and other development-related items are in compliance with the town's land use bylaw. Other concerns that have been noted are street parking, increase in traffic, back alley allotment, the type and size of building, low-cost rental versus ownership, security and safety of neighbors, property management, privacy of adjacent landowners due to location and height of building on the site, and dust. The developer will be required to provide off-street parking with the number of stalls to be determined by the number of units to be constructed. As streets are municipally owned, we cannot regulate street parking in front of people's homes. The developer will have to prove that the site and the number of off-street parking stalls will meet the requirements of the relevant sections in the land use bylaw. It is likely that traffic will increase, but the impact is negligible, with access to parking by way of the back alley. There are currently no back alleys in the town that are paved. The developer will be required to manage dust and debris during the construction period. In addition, the adjacent landowners will continue to have back alley access to their properties, as back alleys are town-owned property and remain under the authority of the town. With regard to owners versus renters, the town has no jurisdiction or authority over users. We only have jurisdiction regarding the use of the property, so this is not a relevant planning consideration. However, it is my understanding that it is the intent of the developer to condominiumize and sell the units. The existing building on the site is a two-story building. As we are not at the development permit stage, we do not have confirmation on the building height. Indications from the developer are that the development proposal will not exceed the height of a two-story building, so there would be no increased impact on the adjacent landowner's privacy due to building height. Safety and security in the neighborhood will not be compromised, as increased density increases the security of the neighborhood with that many more eyes on the street. The downtown overlay bylaw was approved by council on September 18th, 2013. Under section 1, general purpose, it states that one of the purposes of the overlay district is to provide incentives to develop larger parcels at higher density in a coordinated, planned approach. The bylaw also requires the developer to maintain a consistent high level of design quality throughout the district. In addition, the Downtown Design Review Committee will have an opportunity to review the development application for quality and conformance to the overlay bylaw prior to the application being approved by the development officer. Council must base their decision on relevant planning concerns. The Planning and Development Department is recommending approval of this rezoning application as it complies with the Downtown Overlay Bylaw, the current Municipal Development Plan, and the newly proposed Municipal Development Plan, the Town's Sustainability Plan, and the Calgary Metropolitan Plan. This application will also comply with the newly proposed Land Use Bylaw under Section 3.9 R3 Apartment District. Thank you, Your Worship. I will answer any further questions that you may have.
Thank you, Betty Ann. And yes, Councillor Peterson.
Through the chair, Betty Ann, there was a comment that I did not understand around peak flow. If you could go back just to read those few sentences.
This is information obtained from our development engineer and our infrastructure people.
Right.
Linda.
Your Worship, this is really information that is relevant at development permit stage. The application would not be approved if we could not prove capacity at that time. So this was initial engineer from our development engineer saying that he believes capacity is there for 12 units.
Could you reread the sentence, please?
Okay.
Flow hours would be
Yeah,
the highest.
I know what peak flow hours was. It was the context of the sentences that I had concern with.
I believe the sentence is, adding 12 units will not have any significant impact, but will need to be reviewed for peak hourly flow.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions? I would invite a motion to either close or adjourn the public hearing.
I would move to close the public hearing.
All in favor? Thank you.
Your Worship.
All right, moving on to the regular council meeting. We'll go with any additions or deletions to the agenda.
Your Worship?
Yes, Councillor
If we
Peterson.
could add the issue of a town fire, I forget what the wording
Fire
was.
rescue.
Fire rescue truck, that'll be under, I'm sorry?
5.1.
Thank you.
Your Worship, I move the adoption of the agenda as amended.
I'm sorry?
We have one.
Go ahead.
Can we add under 6.2 fees bylaw?
Fees by law?
Now.
Thank you.
Move the adoption of the agenda as amended.
Thank you, Councillor Walls. All in favor? That's moved and adopted. I'd entertain a motion regarding previous minutes of February 19th, 2014 regular council meeting minutes.
So moved, Your Worship.
Move to, are you moving to adopt, Councillor?
I am, Your Worship.
All in favor? That's approved. We'll go to 5.1, fire truck delegation. I wonder if we can call our firemen in. Good evening, gentlemen. We spoke earlier. I appreciate you sticking around to speak with council on this this evening. The floor is yours. You wish to discuss a vehicle.
We are requesting that council supports the purchase of a new rescue truck for the town of Strathmore Fire Department to support the replacement of this 1994 model that is at its 20-year lifespan. So 2014 is its 20 years. We have been doing research and have found a demo model that's on the market right now that we can get for a very reasonable price that's going to be fiscally beneficial to the town, to the fire department, and to the citizens of Strathmore. With the 1994 model, industry standard, which is documented fire underwriters, insurance surveys, and NFPA standards, which we have to follow, all give us a statement of the lifespan of apparatus. Within 15 years is a first response apparatus. So that 15-year window gives you the chance if that's the first truck out of the hall responding to calls. Any truck that's within 16 to 20 years is what they call second response status. So it has a replacement truck, or it's a duplicate truck for another apparatus that's in the hall similar, or a spare or reserve. And anything over 20 years is the lifespan completeness of that vehicle. It's due for replacement. 2014 is the retirement date for this truck, and we are requesting support to purchase a demo model that we have found right now. The truck that we have found is a similar truck to the one we brought in last year that we talked about in October. At that time, $300,000 was our budget area that we were looking at. The truck at that time was right around $300,000. Today's dollar, with the change in the American dollar and the Canadian dollar inflation, we're looking at $320,000. So that truck has changed approximately $20,000 in that 4 to 6 month time. What we've done is we found a truck that has been used as a demo model in the States, going around to trade shows. The truck was built in 2013. It's worth approximately $400,000 at the time it was built. The price that we've negotiated with them is down to $370,000 for the truck. It has a light bar on the top that is worth $40,000 that was added as an extra, and they're willing to invoice us separately for that light bar, so that would bring the truck cost down to $330,000. The $40,000 for the light bar is, we're hoping to pay it over a 90-day period. They've given us a 90-day window. We have $20,000 that's been allocated from the Volunteer Firefighters Association, their fundraising fund. All the time and effort that they've put in fundraising over the years has built up that fund enough, and they're willing to donate their amount of that fund of $20,000 towards paying off this light bar. The other $20,000 would come from an account that we've built up from doing highway rescue with Alberta Transportation, and there's monies in there that would help sponsor the difference of that $20,000. Back to our $300,000 window of the initial truck we had. To get that truck up to the standards of this one here, with the different light bar, the locker status, and all the parts, we would probably spend an additional $30,000 to $50,000 we're recommending to get the base truck that we had looked at originally up to the status of this one here. So to get this truck for $330,000 right now is a steal of a deal compared to spending $400,000 to replace it in 2 months' time.
And the other thing that this truck is immediately available if council was to let or ask the fire department to do another request for proposals. The build out time frame for another truck would be anywhere from 6 months to a year away. 6 months being very optimistic, likely, but it's probably a year away. So it's a financial opportunity for the town of Strathmore to replace that vehicle and put a brand new vehicle with another 20-year lifespan in that fire hall to serve the residents of this community as well as those that travel the highways around this community. So the administration of the fire department is behind us, as well as the volunteers. As you can imagine, to have the volunteers dedicate $20,000 of their hard-earned money in fundraising towards this project means there's a lot of support for this from the volunteers, as they're going to be the ones that are operating this vehicle on the highway.
This vehicle is we have a hold on this vehicle until Monday, so that's where the urgency of this comes in. This vehicle came on the market last Thursday. We talked to them, we negotiated, we tried to get a first right of refusal to give us about a 30-day window, but because another fire department in the States was also looking at the vehicle, they would only guarantee us a whole date of this coming Monday. So that's where we came in to do the special request now to come in here to be able to use our fund that's in reserves to get this. As of Monday, if the other fire department purchases it, it's gone and we have to start all over again. We're looking at a total build-up process or speccing out another truck.
Absolutely. And seeing that our 1994 rescue that exists right now is at the end of its useful lifespan, for us the priority is to be able to continue to provide the citizens of Strathmore with the same level of service. And so for the rescue truck, a lot of people might not necessarily understand the importance of a rescue truck, but the purpose of a fire rescue truck is to support the first line apparatus, so to provide the air cylinders, the tools in order to ventilate a structure, to provide power to fans in order to clear out any smoke, CO, any type of flammable gases that exist as well. And as well as on MVCs, provide the tools to be able to cut people out of vehicles, as well as provide light as well, right? So that if you have no power at the scene, you can provide the light in order for you to be able to see exactly where you need to be able to make those cuts or put out those hot spots. So for us, we understand that the need has already been established to replace the truck. What we're trying to establish is the priority is now for us to be able to go with what our Captain Al said in order to replace that.
Thank you. Councillor Walls.
Your Worship, to the Deputy Chief and the captains, thank you guys very much for all of your work. Just a quick question, how soon can we get the unit?
If we talk to them by Monday, they could guarantee it would be in Strathmore within a month. It would be coming out of Phoenix. They would get it shipped to Abbotsford, and this is all included in the cost. It would come to Abbotsford. They would do all the paperwork for the border, get it ready to have its Canadian standard and stamp and seal, and then deliver it to Strathmore.
Perfect. So my subsequent question would be, how quick would it be in service then?
Within the month.
Within the month?
Yeah, basically when it comes here, the tools that we have off the current rescue truck would be transferred over to that truck immediately.
Awesome, thank you.
And that transfer could take 1 day.
Thank you, Worship.
I think the only operational thing that we need, Councillor Walls, is to replace the lights to ensure it meets the Highway Traffic Act standards in Canada. I think it's got some blue lights on there, which is replacement of flex covers.
Okay.
And that would be taken care of by Abbotsford.
Okay. Thank you, Worship.
Councillor Peterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would move that Strathmore Town Council give permission to Strathmore Volunteer Fire to exercise the ROFR to purchase a fire rescue truck at a cost of not more than $330,000 and to pursue the purchase of the light bar separately with funds realized from revenue through highway service and from fundraisers from local firefighters. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I call the question, are there any other questions of the fire department? Councillor Rempel.
Thank you. Through the chair to the fire department staff here. The urgency that you express on this right of first refusal coming off on Monday doesn't put any pressure on me to either support it or not support this request. I think that might seem to some people that in the audience or people that are watching that this you're here forcing our hand. I realize and we all realize that unit is old, has been breaking down, has left you guys partway, either going to or coming back from a scene, and those kind of problems will continue if we want to continue to use that as our first line unit. I hope that we can protect that unit by purchasing a new unit and keeping that unit as a standby unit for the future. And if we run it totally into the ground, then we don't have anything to fall back on when this other unit is in for servicing or for upgrades or whatever. And so therefore, I just wanted to make that clear that the right of first refusal doesn't put any pressure on me to either support it or not support it.
And we didn't mean it that way.
No, that's not our intention. Our intention, Councillor Rempel, was to present council with an opportunity to be fiscally responsible.
And I appreciate that. I think we all
yeah,
appreciate that.
Absolutely. So
Thank you.
Councillor Peterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Certainly, Councillor Rempel, thank you for that, because the urgency is not in the need for the truck so much as the need to purchase this one because it will take so long to get one. And though it seems we're moving in urgency, far-sighted previous Strathmore councils had put money in reserve for this. And I would just like to confirmation from our Deputy CAO as to the amount of money currently in reserve.
Worship, I believe there's approximately $407,000 in reserves.
Thank you. And having said that the money is saved and it is in reserve, this is what it was meant for. I think this is really timely, and Strathmore is very proud of the efficiency and efficacy of its firefighters, and we just applaud you and are glad that previous town council had foresight in order to be able to do this today.
Thank you. Councillor Few.
Actually, Your Worship, Councillor Peterson asked the exact same question I was going to about how much was in the reserves, and maybe I could just add that this item has been brought before us before, so we've been made well aware of the need for a new fire rescue unit. So, thank you. And thanks for all your efforts.
Councillor Peters, or Bill, in responses, it's been identified in various master plans for the town of Strathmore with the fire department. It's not an easy decision we make. It's part of our planning process as well. And there's other items in that master plan that certainly will require consideration from town council in the future as well to maintain the level of service that we have for this community.
Thank you. Just one comment and a question. The comment refers to, I think, what Councillor Fuel was also talking about. This matter has been before us a number of times. It's been my position and other councillors' positions that we wanted to limit the cost of this item, of this unit. That's a lot of money we're dealing with. The last advice that was given to the fire department was to look for a demo. That's what you guys have done. You've gone out and looked for a demo, and we think we are saving money in that regard. But more to my question, if you guys can answer, just what is wrong with this 20-year-old vehicle that we're using right now? Anything wrong other than as being kept together with some tape? Yeah.
The 20-year-old, I equated probably to driving a 1994 Ford Taurus. Not that there's anything wrong with the 1994 Ford Taurus, but we all know that as a vehicle ages, you start to get maintenance issues. Speaking from personal experience, driving a vehicle recently down the highway, the wiper washer stopped working in a pretty major snowstorm. So the safety considerations are one thing for the crews. The advances in safety for the firefighters in the vehicles is definitely another consideration. The present unit does not have full seatbelt restraints for the firefighters in the back seats. So the 3 firefighters that sit in the back seats have lap belt restraints only, which we know is probably not the safest securement for those firefighters. So those issues are paramount for us. We are volunteers. We go out on that highway at our, to help others, but we also have family members at home that we want to get to at the end of the day. We want to provide the best equipment to our folks that are volunteering their time. And that's part of the issue with older vehicles. It's standard in industry to recommend replacement, but it's also prudent for the safety of our folks.
And correct me if I'm wrong on this, but this unit is an integral part of your unit, of your attending units.
Absolutely. Every structure fire within the town of Strathmore or where we're providing mutual aid more and more now, that vehicle rolls. The fire this morning that was just located outside of town, it was the third vehicle that went. And without that vehicle, we wouldn't have had the air bottles to function as a fire department. So it's an integral part. And as you know, with the #1 highway running through this area, the amount of vehicle accidents, the reliance on our service with mutual aid that's being requested from neighboring partners, it's a critical component to the safety of this community.
Great, thank you. Anything arising in council? There is a motion on the floor. I would just invite Councillor Peterson, if she would, to include the source of the funds for this unit in the motion.
So moved. Friendly amendment.
Thank you. Call the question. All in favor? That is carried unanimously. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Now, the old truck's 20 years old, so it's a classic.
It's a classic.
Will you guys be entering it in the fun runners? So
Maybe we can put it in the grade.
Once we
Pretty.
buy the wine brand, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Well
you.
done.
Hard work, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go to 6.1, bylaw 14-02. Any comments from administration on in regards to that item?
Councillor Field has a question.
Yep. I can wait.
We'll just let Ms. Fountain introduce the background, and we'll go to questions.
Background, thank you, Your Worship. Background, the property lots 29 through 31, block 17, plan 5894P is located in downtown north within the downtown overlay district. The town has received an application to rezone the property from R1 single detached dwelling district to R3 apartment district.
Thank you. We've had the public hearing in this matter. Are there any questions of the development officer? Councillor Field, did you have something?
Well, I don't have a question. I just have a
Certainly.
statement, a clarification.
Go right ahead.
So I don't know if this is not exactly directed at you, Betty Ann, or just in general that we can discuss. My concerns regarding the rezoning of this property from R1 to R3, and I guess maybe it is a question, is does this set a precedent in the rest of the neighborhood as far as rezoning to R3 if we do this one? And the reason I ask that is because it looks like the fair development actually fits the R2X zoning category more so than R3. And I've wondered it earlier on in the evening if this set of photographs of past units being more like R2X would be that transition that the rest of the neighbors would accept. So I guess that's I don't know if that's too rambling, but I guess I just wanted to make sure that if we approve this or if we rezone this to R3, is that going to then set a precedent as far as other developments right in these R1 property areas?
Ms. Nelson?
Worship, again, I need to stress that the size of the site is also what you're looking at. So you could not take an R1 site immediately adjacent and rezone it to R3 because it would not meet the requirements, the site requirements. And I guess the proposed building meets the R2X requirements, but it also meets the R3 requirements. So.
And before we go any further, I neglected to have second reading on this, and perhaps we should do that before we go into any other questions.
I'd move the council give second reading to bylaw number 14-02.
Thank you. Discussion. Thank you, Councillor Field. Are there any other questions?
I just have a question of procedure, Your Worship.
Yes.
And that is, can one amend a second reading to a bylaw at this point?
Can one amend a second reading?
Yes.
Can one amend the bylaw? No.
Yeah, the title. My intention, Your Worship, would be to amend the title of the bylaw from R3 to R2X.
No, because you'd need another public,
Yes.
hearing
You'd
on
have
that.
to start over.
But that doesn't change the size of the building in any way.
Well,
When I was reading in the Rules of Order, Your Worship, it wasn't clear to me. It looked like you could do that as an amendment.
It's a different use though, so we
Yeah.
have to start over.
Yeah.
Right.
any other questions or comments in regards to this matter? I guess that's the issue I have is I would have preferred to seen this as R2X. I really would have. But I'm also satisfied that changing it to having it at R3 is not going to make much of a difference because we are limited at development permit time as to what happens on that site due to the size of the lot, and we can't change the size of the lot. That's the size of the lot. Councillor Fuel.
Your Worship, I just wanted to ask a procedural question too, and that is, knowing the fair development and what they plan, that it fits more in the R2X, is it out of line or out of order to ask any of the concerned residents in the area if their concerns are eased by the fact that this is not a giant apartment and it is the height of a two-story? Is that out of order to?
Well, I don't, and I mean, nothing's out of order, Councillor Fuel, but I don't, to be fair to the fairs and to everyone else, they're not obligated to tell us what they're building. I think they've gone out of their way to be honest with us in regards to what they're building, and there are a lot of restrictions at development permit stage that is going to limit them to what they can build on that property. Fortunately or unfortunately, this is not that stage. Councillor Peterson.
I could not vote in favor of second reading to this bylaw for the following reasons. The first is that I do agree with Councillor Fuel that it is much better served to be an R2X, and that I also think that having ran on a platform of collaboration with community, this might be an example of lost opportunity. And I know that building and zoning and area structure plans are very business oriented, and I think that there is a different way to do business with community, especially established community, and I think it's something that we should look at in the future. I know that that infrastructure isn't necessarily an issue that's on the floor here, but it was brought forward as a result of this bylaw, and I do think that when I hear the issue of peak flow needing to be reviewed, I think that's something that causes me concern. And I also know that we are reviewing land use bylaw in the very near future, and I think that this will also be consideration in this. And having said all of that, I think that the fairs become a victim in this because they have been nothing but excellence in terms of their service to community and what they have done. But in light of what I've heard from community tonight, I cannot support this.
The only comment I would make in response, I guess, is that the community has also spoken in regards to a revitalization program in the downtown area, and I think it may be virtually impossible to please everyone on this, but the need for increased residences, actually the need for increased residence period is a major issue for this town right now. If anyone has checked the local vendors, the real estate calls, and I have recently gotten some statistics in that our residences, available residences, are not where they should be. We need more housing. This reputable firm that is providing, I I think, a reasonable application for this rezoning bylaw. And I think we have spoken to the public in regards to this. And no, not everyone is in agreement, but there are a lot of people that are. Any other questions? Any other comments?
Your Worship, just a comment. I too support revitalization and more density downtown and so forth. One thing that really concerns me is trying to find a parking stall over there right now. Really, really concerns me. And for that reason alone, and I simply can't vote in favor of this at this time.
Councillor Rempel.
That, through the chair to Councillor Walls, whether it's an R2X or an R3, that doesn't make any difference. It's not going to change anything. The density is the same number of units. So the zoning has absolutely nothing to do with the number of parking stalls that'll be available on that site.
Your Worship, to Councillor Rempel, I would suggest that we need to relook at our parking number of parking stalls, because it's quite niche.
We did. We dealt with it.
Councillor Peterson.
Just on that last point, I think that we're going to be dealing with it again in the new land use. Am I correct? And because it is a problem, and I also think that Councillor Sobel made a very, very good point in the fact that we need density in the downtown, but we also need good community. And so in my perspective, I saw a great number of that community come forward tonight. Whether or not they came forward before is now immaterial. And so I think building a good community is about being good neighbors. And I think that's what these people were addressing tonight. And so I do think that if we have to bring this back as a redesignation, and we have to look at transitional planning, and we have to look at it in the context of the downtown overlay and downtown revitalization, I think this is the community that can be our partners. These are long-term residents of the community that have had long standing in the community and can give considerable input into something that's really, really viable. And as far as increased density, I think we can do that in exactly with what the fairs are talking about and what they're and they'll be doing a lot more of in the future. And we can do it without making bad neighbors.
Okay, anybody else? We have second reading on the table. We'll call the vote. All in favor? All opposed? 3 opposed, and that matter is defeated.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. And we are on to 6.2. Town of Strathmore fees bylaw, number 13-21.
Thank you, Your Worship. I can address that. Your Worship, this bylaw was approved in December of 2013, and we have noticed a few areas that need to be revised for both clarification. Some are just formatting changes. The first change is under the subdivision application. There was one line under that reads municipal reserve, environmental reserve, public utility lots, and the $1,000 per application. The first 2 lots plus 150 for every additional lot between 2. That was under, I believe, the residential development or under condominium endorsement, and it should have been moved up under subdivision application. There's also a new fee there for developer initiated amendments to a subdivision application already in process. Would be an additional $500 fee plus contract. And these items were just missed from the previous bylaw. As well as under subdivision endorsement, municipal reserve, environmental reserve, and public utility lots are not to be included in the lot count. And 2 new fees that were in the old bylaw that didn't transfer to the new bylaw. And it is the preparation of the development agreement, which is $1,000 if it is not included as part of the application. And the subdivision servicing agreement is the same thing, and it's $300 if it is not included as part of the application. And then under development signage on the following page, this is just for clarification, and it should read the fee included. Fee is included if shown on the original development permit, $100 per sign if it is not on the original development permit. And those are the changes that were requested.
Any questions by council?
Your Worship, just for clarification to our Deputy CEO, there's no other changes to the document other than those that you've highlighted?
Yes, Your Worship, that's correct.
Your Worship, if that's the case, I would move the council approve the changes to Schedule B of Bylaw 13-21, Town of Strathmore Fees Bylaw as recommended.
For the motion, all in favor? It's unanimous, carried. Thank you. We will go to 10.1 Council Committee Reports. And we'll start with Councillor Rempel.
Okay. At the February 11th excuse me, Happy Gang meeting, we took the opportunity to recognize some of the many volunteers that have worked tirelessly for the Happy Gang and helped the town since it became a society in 1979. Excuse me. The mayor attended as well and thanked the volunteers for the contributions that they have made to the community and the Happy Gang Society. As a token of appreciation from the town, we presented them with a diary which they graciously accepted. Their contributions have not gone unnoticed by other members of society and are very much appreciated by the community. Volunteers are an important part of any community, and some recognition for their contribution is always appreciated. We had just finished the presentation when Councillor Rocky showed up with about 4 dozen donuts, which were well received by the near record crowd. That pretty much finished the meeting right there. But numerous other items were discussed after that, and some questions from the floor were answered. And the next meeting is on March 11th at 1:30 p.m. And I'd just like to mention that for seniors that have never attended, I would encourage them to come out and enjoy the fellowship with the other seniors. That's the end of my report.
Thank you, Councillor Fuel.
Yes, Your Worship. There was a meeting, 2 meetings yesterday with the Strathmore, or the Youth Club of Strathmore, so I was not able to get the minutes in on time to Jennifer. We had a fundraising subcommittee meeting yesterday at 4. The comedians have been booked for the Friday Night Laughs on May 30th. It's going to be held at the Civic Center, and advertising, promotional materials, and tickets will be on sale very, very soon. Moving on to the regular board meeting that happened the same night, last night. The fire department came to check the basement of the youth center and found that there were no harmful chemicals, and a lock is going to be put on the sole access to the basement. As far as a new update in programs, we're going to have a 6-week drama-based program starting on Saturdays from 10 to 12 for ages 10 to, sorry, the time is from 10 to 12. Our various programs are being very well attended, and we're looking at a spring break camp as well in conjunction with FCSS the week of April 22nd. And that's it.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson.
Councillor Walls and I attended a Strathmore Municipal Library Board meeting, but we're waiting for some issues to be dealt with before we'll bring the report back on the March 19th meeting. And we're very hopeful that our Strathmore Library Board will be coming to council to present. So we'll have more for that next meeting. Wademsa did not meet in this month because we have an event coming up next month in Long Service Awards. And Strathmore Regional Arts Collective did meet, and I did not get my report in, but they continue to move forward. There was really nothing new to report, except that they are continuing to look for building space and planning on doing the festival again in the fall. And you have in front of you a Marigold Library report, and of interest, special interest to this group would be the fourth bullet down on the right-hand side of the first page, that included in Marigold's capital budget is a new roof for the headquarters building. The building, which is located in Strathmore, the headquarters for Marigold, is undergoing some renovation, some much-needed renovation. And then on the back, there is some interesting information with regards to some of the new digital equipment that Marigold is being able to hand out to all the rest of our libraries, the Zinio digital magazines, Grant Connect, and the Science Reference Center. And our own library is well aware of all of those wonderful things, and it is one of the reasons that there's been an increase in membership at our local library. That's all I have to report, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Waltz.
Oh, thank you, Your Worship. There was the finance, like Councillor Peterson said, we attended the library meeting. The finance committee, no meeting. Attended the Wheatland Lodge meeting. Finances seem to be in order. Surprising, our wait list for Strathmore still sits at 11 people trying to get into our facilities. So, going to be attending a conference and coming up in the end of March. Hopefully, get some more information on funding and how that works. Promise is trying to talking about collaborating a bunch of those together. So, it's going to see how that works. So, names advisory. I can't remember if there was a meeting or not. I don't think there was. United Way, we're preparing our campaign packages, and they should be available soon. And we're also looking for a help me out there, municipal clerk. We're looking for some person to be some sponsor or something. Yeah, the superhero. So if there's anyone that's looking to sponsor, I need a superhero for the month. One of these months coming up, so I have to come back with some names. The thought is we'll have a superhero of the month per business, and they'll fundraise money for United Way. So it's a good idea. Downtown revitalization. I missed the meeting due to some work commitments. The deputy CEO has brought me up to up to speed on what's going on there. I attended the Home and Garden Show on the weekend. Our booth on Sunday morning was extremely busy, so it was really good publicity we got there. That's all, Your Worship. Thank you.
Well, thank you. For myself, I attended the Strathmore, Alberta 55+ Summer Games on February 24th, which dealt with a number of housekeeping issues like banking and insurance, etc. This group is committed to a number of fundraising efforts, including a casino in the latter part of this year. Much discussion was had on the logo for the games, and a vote was held, a logo and motto, and a vote was held actually to determine which specific motto we would be using for our summer games. After a vote, the motto of, quote, "Our time to shine," unquote, was chosen. This in turn led to discussions on that logo, and it is anticipated that this will be released in the very near future to the public. The games are now 16 months away. And lastly, the whole concept of sustainability was discussed. Basically, there's a focus on minimizing the environmental impact of the games. The recent Alberta Winter Games held last month in Banff and Canmore focused heavily in this area and challenged future hosts to partake. The Alberta 55 Summer Games Committee was in favor of a need to continue to demonstrate significant sustainability leadership and unanimously voted in creating a new sustainability portfolio. I would also add that earlier today I accepted an invitation to be the Strathmore 55 Games Director for Sustainability and look forward to that challenge. In regards to the Strathmore Wheatland Addictions Team, or SWAT, I was away on holidays on February 6th and was unable to attend. Slogans for the three slogan boards were decided to focus on tobacco addiction for March. The committee has been advertising to have a new part-time student employee hired, and in fact, I took part in the hiring process on February 26, which resulted in the hiring of a very impressive young man. SWAT continues to discuss new projects for 2014. And lastly, further to what Councillor Walls mentioned, a number of council members attended the Home and Garden Show this past weekend, and we were very well received. There's lots of positive comments. Boy, a lot of people from Strathmore really like Strathmore. I'll tell you, it's kind of nice to see. It's encouraging. One of the things we had there was a new booklet that's entitled, of course, "Where Quality is a Way of Life." Just hot off the press, came in actually the day before we started the trade show, and I would encourage anyone to pick one up if you know of anybody that's interested in some information about Strathmore. This deals with our whole bunch of information, including some maps and some statistics, facts, and figures. So it's a very well done book, and I would encourage anyone to have a look at it if they're so interested. And that's all I have. Are there any questions for any councillors on their committees? I would then invite administration to provide any reports.
Yes, Your Worship. I will update you on the Downtown Design Review Committee.
Thank you.
On February 18th, the Downtown Design Review Committee held their first meeting. The committee members are from Council, Councillor Bob Sobel and Councillor Brad Walls. From administration, Pat Maloney, who is our consulting planner, Betty Ann Fountain, our development officer, and myself. We have a representative from SRAC, and we're still waiting to find out who is going to be that rep. Community at large members are Talisa Tebbett, Robert Breitweiser, and Glenn Freeland. Glenn Freeland was voted in as chair, and Talisa Tebbett is vice chair. The committee reviewed 2 sign applications, one for a new business at 134 2nd Street and one for a business at number 124 3rd Avenue. The committee reviewed the applications for conformity with the new downtown overlay bylaw. The committee also reviewed an application for proposed exterior renovations at 136 2nd Avenue, which is the former Strathmore Standard building. The intent is to renovate the exterior of the building to restore the building to its historical presence in the downtown core within the overlay district. The development officer will review the comments prior to making a decision on the application, and meetings will be held on the 3rd Tuesday of each month. Okay, and for economic development, by the end of 2013, we had issued 892 business licenses. And as was already mentioned, last weekend, some of council and administration attended the Home and Garden Show. It was well attended. We had hundreds of people stopping at the town booth over the weekend, and that did include a lot of Strathmore residents. Phase 1 of the Edgefield commercial subdivision, which contains 4 commercial parcels, will be going to land titles for registration by next week. By the end of February 26th for the year 2014, 26 building permits had been issued for a total construction value of $2,141,562. Of the 26 permits, 8 were for dwelling units, with 3 of those being single-family units. Last year at this time, we had issued 22 permits for a total value of $1,130,581. Of the 22 permits, 2 were for dwelling units, with 1 of those being a single-family unit. So we are increasing our density as we speak. A building permit was issued for 1 new commercial unit at 500A Ranch Market, which is for Anytime Fitness, with a construction value for renovations to the existing bay totaling $315,300. And lastly, after much consultation, we have ordered and received our new town flag. So,
drum roll.
Drum roll, please.
Yeah, don't let it touch the ground. That'd be bad.
Okay, let me turn to the right way.
Upside down?
Here we go.
Very
Oh,
nice.
Now I have to figure out how to hold it.
You're right.
That's everything for me.
And is that all for your report?
That is everything for me, thank you.
Your
Deputy
worship, can I make a motion?
Please do.
Your worship, I would move that we accept council and administration committee reports as presented.
Thank you. All in favor? It's unanimously carried. Thank you. 10.2, Citizens on Patrol. That's Councillor Fuels matter.
Well, it was going to be, your worship. I just wanted to clarify and explain. One of the reasons I was thinking I might need to step down is that I have also become a member of the Youth Club of Strathmore Subcommittee on Finance Planning and Finance fundraising is the words I was looking for. But that's going to be kind of an ad hoc committee when it just will start up when we get closer to events that we want to put on. So I would like to keep my name standing on the Citizens on Patrol Committee, and then I'll get organized on that as quick as possible.
Thank you. Questions between councillors or to administration? Councillor Walls.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a comment. I really want to thank our municipal clerk for printing us out the reports with which committee, which members sit on which committee. It's very, very nice. Thank you very much.
Especially the second version. Anyone else? Any other questions? I have two questions for administration. And the first is in anticipation of the problems we've been having in regards to the garbage being strewn about in Kinsman Lake parking lot last summer, spring, and fall. My question is whether administration can investigate the possibility and feasibility of perhaps prohibiting parking on the Kinsman Lake grounds between certain hours, for instance, midnight to 5 a.m., and to advise council of any options in this regard at a future council date.
And Your Worship, just for your information, administration will be proposing changes to the community standards bylaw, and that would include a no parking regulation for Kinsman Park, and that would be the entire park. That would be between the hours of midnight, and we were thinking 6 a.m., but we could change it to 5. And this would empower the RCMP to write tickets to offenders at their discretion. So, for example, if a vehicle is parked and unoccupied, the officer would have the discretion to allow the vehicle to remain parked overnight, depending on the situation. And we were hoping that by limiting the parking during these hours, we can eliminate or at least improve the current littering problem in Kinsman Park. And we met with Kevin Riley, our staff sergeant, and he is in favor of the town incorporating this provision into our community standards bylaw. And he mentioned that it would definitely be a good tool for the RCMP. And because it would be a town bylaw, that would give them the ability to actually enforce rather than just patrol.
Yeah, I should mention that it wasn't all, I should have clarified that. It's not only the garbage that's being thrown, although that is a significant issue in itself. It's also the noise that's coming at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning with the stereos cranked up loud, and we have residents right across the street there who are regularly being bothered. So the idea is to give the peace officers a little bit of control over who's in there. That was the idea behind that question. Any other comments on that? I mean, we'll be able to discuss this when the bylaw comes in, but I wanted to bring that up. The second arises from a request by council that some sort of process be initiated, which would see businesses in Strathmore not only acknowledged, new businesses in Strathmore not only acknowledged but properly welcomed. This was discussed earlier. I'm just wondering what's transpiring in regards to that project.
Okay, and Your Worship, I have started a list of items that I would like to see included in a business welcome policy. And if you don't mind, I'll just read some of these out. And what I had wanted to do is pass this out to council, not right away, I still have more to add, just for comments and maybe additions or deletions to these lists prior to actually writing the policy. Okay, so One of the thoughts were that we should provide the new businesses with plenty of intrinsic incentives. So perhaps creating a page on the town's website, and we could call it something like New in Town. We could include a bio and photo of the new owner and description of the services the business provides, the location, contact information, and other important information about the new business. Hold a ribbon cutting ceremony with the mayor and council and our local newspapers in attendance. Introduce the new business owner and their family at a regular council meeting. Send a letter from the mayor and council welcoming the new business to town. Advertise in the town's section of the newspaper that a new business is opening in the town. And then take the new owner and family on a tour of the town in our newly proposed vehicle. Then we should also provide an information welcome package, and we should include the following, and probably more than this. Information about all of the businesses and owners in proximity to the new business so that they can meet their neighbors. We could even collect signed business cards or notes from each of the neighboring businesses to include in our welcoming package. Provide relevant information about town bylaws that will impact this new business, for example, the new downtown overlay bylaw. Provide a list of businesses that serve other businesses, for example, contact information for printing for their business cards, cleaning services, bookkeepers, and any other services that their business might need. A copy of the town profile, including business cards from staff for planning and development, utilities, and other relevant staff. Copy of the town brochure, copy of the town resource guide, maybe a free family skate pass, free family swim pass. And then I was thinking of asking the chamber to do a few things as well. And I haven't approached them on this yet. So perhaps the chamber would give them a 3 or 6 month gift membership to the Chamber of Commerce. Could assign a chamber member as a liaison to this business and introduce the person at the next chamber meeting. And welcome this business in the chamber newsletter with an encouragement that other members stop by to say hello and shop or use their service. And that's what I have so far. So.
Wow.
Quite a list.
Sorry?
Quite a list.
Yeah.
It's very impressive.
Absolutely. So I will pass this out to council, and maybe if you wanted to add or whatever, then I can actually put it into account.
I just assume expedite getting that into place. It's quite an extensive list, and it's very impressive. It really is. Personally, the sooner we get this done, I think the better. I think our town relies on these businesses, and we want to show them that we do welcome them. And this, you certainly have a way of doing that with that list. Thank you. Any other questions of administration?
Yeah, Your Worship, I just have one more.
Sure.
The smell at Center Street, what's going on there? Because you know what, it wasn't like that. It hasn't been like that for years and years and years, and all of a sudden now it's starting to transpire. What's going on there?
The what?
The smell at Center Street.
I'm afraid I can't answer that question tonight, but I can definitely get you some information on that. I will ask some questions.
Thank you. I know Councillor Field's been answering some of the questions on there, but I'd like to get right down to the root of the cause. There's obviously something going on there, and we need to get down to the bottom of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Could be a pun.
Body. Thank you. I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Oh, sorry. Actually, I retract that. I think Councillor Peterson wanted to take it.
No.
Okay, let's not fight.
You go ahead. I would not usurp you.
So moved then.
All in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you very much.